In the summer of 2008, the opening ceremonies of the Olympic Games were held in Beijing's magnificent Bird's Nest Stadium. It had been designed in part by Weiwei. Then 51 years old, he was the foremost artist and sculptor in China, globally celebrated for his conceptual work. You might have seen one of his exhibitions in front of the Plaza Hotel last year, 12 enormous bronze heads of the animals in the zodiac. Some call him China's Andy Warhol. But when the Olympic opening ceremony came around, Ai Weiwei wasn't there. He refused to go. That majestic stadium, he had decided, was a fake smile that China was showing the world. Just a front to hide a corrupt political system and a repressive society. A few months earlier, I had been outraged by the government's response to the earthquake that destroyed Sichuan province. Among the 80,000 dead were thousands and thousands of children who had been killed when their shoddily built schools collapsed around them. I traveled to Sichuan and turned muckraker, trying to identify all the dead children that the government refused to acknowledge. Before long, he had become one of the government's leading critics, a man who dared to say and write things that few others would. I was a tough customer. He had spent the 80s living here in the East Village, right around the corner from the public. After returning to China in the early 1990s, he would need that toughness to survive the horrific ordeals that followed his protests in 2008. He was arrested and beaten by the police, causing a hemorrhage that nearly killed him. He had to look on helpless as one of his studios was bulldozed in Shanghai. Last year, he was arrested again and held incommunicado for 81 days. Even now, authorities continue to hold his passport, which prevented him from attending a major exhibition of his work in Washington, D.C., taking a faculty post in Berlin, and a little closer to home, taking part in a public forum that Penn and the Public Theater had planned. None of this has stopped him. On the contrary, at every turn, Ai Weiwei has managed to turn his struggles into art. When the government deleted the blog post that listed the names of the dead children, he designed an enormous exhibit for the facade of a museum in Munich. Using 5,000 children's backpacks, he spelled out something that a bereaved mother had told him. She lived happily for 7 years in this world. Like a Skinder nega, Weiwei is getting his message out in spite of all efforts to stop him. In fact, those efforts are backfiring. Today, he is not just the best-known artist, but one of the most famous people in all of China, and a leader for those who demand greater freedom and transparency from their government. A newly published book of his sayings, Weiweiisms, not Weiweiisms, sorry, includes a tip to his fellow citizens for surviving the regime. Respect yourself and speak for others. Do one small thing every day to prove the existence of justice. Around the world, his fellow artists have come to his defense. We are delighted to have a leading voice for human rights and free expression here with us tonight to read a new statement from Ai Weiwei. Shirin Neshat is a painter, photographer, and sculptor born in Iran. She now lives in New York. Her unique perspective of living in multiple worlds has allowed her to make extraordinary artworks about fault lines between men and women, between the modern and the traditional, between Islam and the West. From her photographic series in the mid-90s, Women of Allah, to her celebrated 2009 film, Women Without Men, Neshat has created some of the most arresting images in modern art. Like Ai Weiwei, she uses these images to raise provocative questions about power, identity, and freedom. Women Without Men, her film about 4 women in Iran before the 1953 coup, seemed to anticipate the protests that rocked the country in 2009. She dedicated the film, which won a Best Director prize at the Venice Film Festival, to those who lost their lives fighting for freedom and democracy in Iran, from the constitutional revolution of 1906 to the Green Revolution of 2009. Please welcome Shirin Neshat.
Thank you so much. I'm shorter than he is. It's really such a pleasure to be here to share a statement by Weiwei with you. It's actually a letter that he wrote to me in response to some of the questions that I posed to him. First and most, of course, being an Iranian artist and living in a self-imposed exile, I'm very familiar with what it's like to be coming from a country that deprives its citizens of basic human rights, freedom of expression, and what it's like to be artists who are constantly under censorship, at times arrest and imprisonment and torture as a form of punishment. As we all know, Weiwei has been someone who has courageously confronted the people of power, injustice. He has continued to inspire, provoke, and mobilize his own people. And he has risked his own personal life and continues to be a challenge to his government. As we know also that the world has come to recognize this extraordinary human being, artist and activist. And of course, the art world has been overwhelmingly inspired by the power of his work and his political position. In my letter to him, I posed the question that has troubled me as an artist, and I wondered how he feels about the way in which in the Western cultures, artists like us are characterized as political artists. In a few moments, you'll hear his response and words, but I wanted to share with you that in my opinion, it is that if artists' personal lives are defined and directly impacted by political realities, that they have not possibility to have that moral distance from the political situation. So it's not that we want to be political and activist, it's that we don't find that distance that is necessary not to be a political artist. And therefore for us, art and politics is one. And if that Western artists may enjoy the freedom of expression and their expression somehow is defined by that freedom, we, on the other hand, who are deprived from that freedom of expression, live with that obsession with the lack of freedom of expression and the desire to reclaim the freedom of expression. The letter from Weiwei. Dear Shirin, I'm very thankful that you are here tonight representing me and have your voice, as I cannot be here to join this important gathering. My inability to join you shows the condition we live in, a society where essential and fundamental rights cannot be protected. You ask me, do you think it's possible to be a genuine political artist without also living the life of an activist? I would not call myself a political artist, though like all artists, I have political opinions. When an artist's expression refers to social justice or politics, making sure that the work can be seen as it is meant to be seen, well, by definition means that that he or she might become an activist. All artists are also activists to some degree because all art has to deal with aesthetics. And my aesthetics has some kind of moral or political aspect and a message that relates to a greater philosophy. So we cannot divide aesthetics from basic human struggles. You ask me if it would have been possible for me to make the work that I have without risking my life. Some of my works are less concerned with my own immediate environments or specific conditions, but some do relate to my ordeals and to the struggle for social justice. In a society like China, if your work directly relates to the search for truth or expressing yourself on human rights and social justice, it definitely will be seen as political opposition. So it brings a very real danger to whoever speaks out. This dictatorial society is based on silencing these expressions and any actions that fight for justice and truth, for greater communication and discussion. Your final question. How do you think your ordeals have changed your art? My ordeals are part of my art, and my experiences are part of my art. Art can never be disconnected from my personal experiences and cannot be disconnected from my struggles relating to the dignity of being an artist and a person in this oppressed society as seen by my recent harsh conditions and ordeals. My detention teaches me the weakness of power in the society and teaches me the power of individual expression. This can really make them scared and threatened. They cannot allow this type of free and open expression, as it would end this type of society and this government and how they rule. All politics for me involves a total life. You have to have your principles and aesthetics together as one for the best results. Your intention and profession should be part of a liberation of yourself. We should realize our potential instead of limiting our expression. So art and politics can be one thing and not to have to be separated as some might think. Dear Shirin, I thank you for your efforts and wish you well. Thank you.